Recording.
Okay, we are recording. It is now 6:33 and we do have a quorum, so I'm going to start the meeting. Good evening, everyone. This is CB2's February Executive Committee meeting. I'm Susan Kent, Chair of CB2. As I said, we have a quorum. So first item, approval of the January Executive Committee minutes. Does anybody have any issues with those minutes, questions, edits, what have you? Nothing. If not, I will take a motion to approve. And a second, and all in favor.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, chair's report. Just two items. First, I know next month we're having our elections. It looks like we have one slot for which we will not have somebody who's running, which is second vice chair. I am just raising this so that before the meeting, yes, people may be nominated from the floor, but if you're either interested or reach out to your fellow board members, it's always awkward if people are asked in the moment, would you like to run? So I'm just sort of letting everybody know that that opportunity is there. Mark will talk in his report more detail about technical requirements. The other thing I want to discuss is I have seen now from committees and from other board members interest in putting forward resolutions, discussing some of the radical changes that we're seeing now in government, things that may have started, on the federal level that are trickling down to us. It is, I think, important for if there are issues that are coming that are appropriate for a committee to address, they should be coming through a committee, not only for the committee to, debate a subject, but to give the public a chance to weigh in. It is also, I'd like to get input from all of you about how we move forward in terms of, would you like to see us get together and discuss what we would like to address, where we'd like to draw lines, in the sense that I know that we cannot make political statements, but there may be statements that have political ramifications, and that we may not be something that's appropriate for us to address. So I'm putting this out there right now. I'd like to hear from anybody has thoughts on, would you like to see us? Of course, at some point I want to hear from the community, but first I want to hear from the board members. Are you interested in that sort of a thing?
Might be helpful to give an example of.
Well, yeah. Look, for example, Patricia had brought to me a letter dealing with ICE and its intrusions into the schools and impacting social service providers. And it's certainly something that is relevant to us, but that I think there's more impact if it comes through the committee versus rushing it through. Faster is not better, especially if we miss out on community input. We may come out on the right side of things, but if the people we represent don't have a chance to stand up and put their 2 cents in, they could turn around and say, but you didn't do it the right way. We're very concerned about process. There may be other things that we do not want to address because we feel that they have political ramifications. I know now I was presented with a draft of a resolution dealing with the mayor. It's not an illegal resolution in the sense that it doesn't run afoul of laws, but is it something that you want to discuss? It's not something that we normally do address. And is it something that can have ramifications in the sense that we live in vindictive times? Something to consider. So I want to hear from people about, this is not something that we can discuss at length right now, but I want to know if I reach out and I put something on a schedule so that people will get together And we will discuss these, and we will have the examples that are coming out of committee to say, where we want to be.
I think.
Okay, Susanna, you can go first, and then I will, in the room, and then I will take the people who are online.
I think I always try to go back to what our mission is. Our mission is to be a liaison between people in our neighborhoods and the city. That's our job. So there are times when I think that that's important, and times when there are some statements that I just don't think we should bother making.
Right.
Stay out of it.
Anyone else in the room? Otherwise, I will start with, okay. Okay, Janine, and then Emma, and then I will go to you, and then I have, what is that?
Sort of error.
Shannon Road. I don't think it's, okay, but we haven't, but it's not affecting this. Okay, let's keep going.
I think we should focus on things we can impact. And I think unless there is a time crunch, like, federal funding for 9/11 or something that's coming to a vote, it should go through our committee process. Because at the end of the day, what CB2 does is not going to change things, but it will provide pressure on our elected officials who really haven't done much. So for example, ICE in schools, we know that attendance is down, and I think it varies, and I'm not sure what data you're going to have, but the superintendent of District 2 is coming next week, Monday. So I think that's important to hear, but that's going to go through the normal process. And our children who are afraid to go to school, that's a real issue. And Mayor Adams, I don't know what the resolution was for him to step down or for Hochul to remove him, but again, that's a political one.
We're in a very strange time. I just want to know that if there's an opportunity to create something, it does first to hear from our board members.
Yeah.
Emma.
Yeah, I think this is a really exceptional time. I have been kind of surprised by what feels like quiet from our electeds. And I think if there's ability for us to just highlight issues that we are hearing through whatever forum gives the public a chance to come and speak and hear and
I also want to create an opportunity if there are issues that are within our purview, is that it's not something that we will stand alone. If we have an opportunity to create something that we can bring other boards online, then we may have more impact, and we are not, just outliers.
Yeah, I think,
I'm sorry.
just a quick comment on the pace. And I think some of it is coming quickly, but I think the methodology of convening and building coalition is really valuable.
Carter?
Yeah,
Can you come to the table?
Yeah, Carter. Yeah, we need to hear you online.
but as far as the city issues, things are moving very fast. I'm not sure our comments or our electeds know that's what they're elected to do. Is somebody else sitting here says they're elected to do the hard jobs, and they're in a position to make those decisions. The one thing I'm very torn about, though, is Stonewall. And we are the community, and this is the birthplace and our community board of the modern gay rights movement. And the changes there, I think, is something that we cannot be silent on. What that statement is, there should be some statement, but I'll just give perspective on the history of the board. We had an LGBT committee, in the past for at least a decade. And I think that is something that, I'm not sure if there's a way to thread a needle on the politics side of that, but this is the birthplace of the modern gay rights movement. And I think that there has to be some statement. To be silent is exactly the opposite of what the movement, is about. And we also have somebody who sits on, and that makes it challenging.
Last time I went to one of those.
Yeah,
meetings.
and that makes it challenging.
We had a conversation before.
Yeah, okay.
Before you got here.
Okay.
It's gonna go to committee.
It just makes it challenging because this is our community, and out of any group in the city, this is a community. Our community board has struggled with these issues through time, and so.
Straightforward. Valerie, did you have your hand up?
Well, I didn't know if Susanna wanted to finish
No,
that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, just to say that we were having a conversation about this very issue before you arrived, and we decided it's gonna go through the Parks Committee, because Stonewall came to the Parks Committee.
So it's a human services.
But you have a draft.
Could be, but just limited.
Yeah.
Just so people know that what the conversation, Susanna had a draft of a resolution addressing the Stonewall issue and the elimination of
The changing of
transgender
nomenclature
component.
of who's the
And my view, and I was encouraging her to, it's a human services committee issue. It should go through the committee. The committee as a whole should have the opportunity to discuss it, and then to bring the public in to have an opportunity to weigh in as well. In the sense of, we should be restraining ourselves of pushing things through executive when we have channels to do it. And that it's, unless something is compelling, that's why we have committees. That's why we have this process. Yes, Valerie.
I just want to say, kind of as a general statement, is that we as a board really want to be the ones leading our electeds or leading on that. And I want us, and just kind of thinking holistically of what is it that we want to lead on rather than follow along with everyone that really has no impact, and really spending the time and the effort on the work that this board does do that we can impact, that affects our community directly. And that's just something I feel very strongly about.
I'm going to go, okay, Rich. And then I'll go on.
Can I just ask a question? Do you mean, Valerie, prioritizing the issues or?
I'm just saying, I'm not saying to prioritize specifically. I mean, we have our yearly statements, but obviously things come up, the world changes. I'm more just saying that the timing and where is the impact, and how do we lead and lead out front instead of scrambling with like the 100th thing to come out about XYZ. That really is not the impact and is not the board leading on an issue.
I think you're saying that the place where we can have the most impact is on local issues. That
Yes.
the city won't get to know unless we.
That's correct.
I'm going to go online. Chenault, and then you're first. Okay.
Several things. First of all, the overriding importance of its being a neighborhood issue. We can't take on the whole city. And the question of cooperating with other boards, there are things that affect other boards. To the point of you were talking about the mayor, whatever somebody said about it, something that's political. It would be political to ask the mayor to resign. It would not be political to say ICE is affecting our neighborhood and it's doing so now, and the mayor is enabling it. That's an important distinction, I think, in saying what is political and what.
I'm going to call on. Okay. I'm sorry to cut you off.
The other thing is a question of, it came up as a concept a little longer in its gestation. The forum on the Dalapito Center and the immediacy of letting the people know, the public, that we're on it, to use your word, Susan. And to my mind, there are two things tonight that we're considering, that the urgency of it and the urgency of taking a position in the board, I don't want to say overrides the committee public part of it, but there are two things that are so clearly going to have support that I feel they should be done straight away.
Okay. I'm going to call on Arturo next. I just want to clarify there's also a difference between something that it is political and it's prohibited as a political statement versus something that has political ramifications, which is broader, and it is part of what I'm hoping people will consider, in the sense that we may be within our rights to do something. Do we want to do it? So Arturo, why don't you had your hands up. Let me go to you.
Yeah, thanks. And I worked with Eddie on this resolution, I think, over the weekend. I think with the information that has been coming out over the last few months, and especially the information that came over the end of last week with the Department of Justice officials and the Southern District of New York officials who resigned, making it very clear that a lot of, very likely criminal things were happening. So I think it is a very important time for us to put our voice out there. I do think that every voice matters, not just the ones of elected officials that are above us, so to speak. And I do think we are listening to the community. I think there is widespread condemnation of what is going on. And I'd just like to say that, like, in terms of time and community input, on a number of occasions, we brought resolutions, letters, etc., right at the full board meeting without, notification, and we've been okay with that. Similarly, on a number of occasions, we brought up issues that affect other community boards, that affect the whole city. And I don't want that to become a pattern where we pick and choose what's a neighborhood issue. Like, I think a lot of issues go across community boards, go across the city, and we do take a position on them. So I'd just like for us to be consistent. If we're going to use that logic, either we never comment on anything that's outside of CB2, or we keep in mind that these are complex issues that we do have a voice on.
Mark.
May I clarify what I said if that caused a misunderstanding?
Okay, Chanel, okay. Clarify, and then I'm going to go to Mark.
It's that it affects the neighborhood. There are things that affect the neighborhood that affect the whole city. And so it's not if they only affect the neighborhood, it's that if they affect the neighborhood.
Okay. Mark?
Hi. So I mostly agree with what most of the people are saying, that we should, weigh in on things. We should always be informed by our immediate community. As far as the school's record, the school
Muted.
You disappeared. Okay, I'm gonna go to Katie. And when
wait, no,
she's
I'm
back.
here.
Okay.
I'm here. So as far as the school's letter, that was actually informed by the public. We got many calls and emails about that, and also informed by school leaders, the PEP. I mean, it didn't come out of nowhere. We didn't wake up and say, oh, we should do this. This was definitely initiated by the public. Also, there was some urgency. There is some urgency. God forbid, some child is snatched from their school while we're waiting for something, an item to come up on an agenda next month. So that is why we proposed the letter. You didn't want to do it. That's fine. We'll do the resolution, but there was some urgency, and I'm sorry if that was not conveyed to you.
Thank you. Katie?
I'm very, I'm pleased that you mentioned 9/11, because I am the official community board 2 representative to the Survivor Steering Committee, and I'm a survivor myself. And 20% of the staff has already been let go, which is protecting the health and the health care for over 130,000 people throughout the country. So that does seem urgent. I don't have any language, but I'm very grateful that you brought it up, and I think let's put it on the list of something that we should be opining on, since we officially participate in a committee about it.
This is not, I'm not bringing this up to have a full-throated debate on all of these things, because there are many things, and they will probably continue to pop up. I just want to have some feedback in the sense of, if I reach out and say, let's sit down as board members and have a discussion, that you are receptive to this.
Yeah, it's just like, when are we going to do that? Like,
I gotta figure it out. But something, this is not going away. I know it's so immediate, but in the sense of the implications are going to be there for a long time.
Well, to Katie's point, I mean, I think this refers to Chanel's point, which is that when there is something happening in the world that is affecting our community, I think we are taking the lens of our community.
Yes.
So Katie, for example, if there are things happening in the world that are affecting the 9/11 Health Commission, or whatever it's called, that came through Human Services. And if you'd like it to be entertained there again, just let me know. We'll add that to the agenda. We can have a very quick discussion about it and a quick resolution.
Yeah.
And
Yes, Valerie.
I just want to say, I think it's cool that this time and effort was spent on this larger issue, or for new board members to want to feel so passionate about an issue, to want to bring it to something to the board. But I feel that it is best to channel those efforts through the proper channels of the committee, through our committee structure, and to ensure that we're focused on what the priorities of this community board is in this community district. And to make sure that that effort is not just done as a one-off without, but I think I do applaud that effort. I just don't agree that this is the forum for that issue.
Okay, go ahead, Emma.
Just to clear, I guess, like, is there, I think sometimes these issues are a little bit more difficult to fit in a community, in a committee package. What is
The person speaking
What
needs
is-
a better mic.
You can't hear you.
Sorry, Chanel.
You gotta project, and you've gotta project.
I know. More soft-spoken than I should be. I'm just curious what is an appropriate pathway for these broader issues that don't fit tidily, that the community is thinking about? Like, how do we give a voice to community members thinking about these things?
No, that is a totally valid question. Not everything that is local will necessarily fit in. And it's one thing to draw a line between something that is beyond us or not significantly about us versus something that is just beyond, that it doesn't fit neatly into something. And yes, and that's why sometimes things do come through executive, and sometimes they are brought up directly to the board because there's no other pathway to it. I guess we try to hopefully take a broad view of what a committee can do, because it's so much more effective to have this on an agenda where you've got people debating it and bringing community members into it, and it's less, just digested better. Yes.
I just want to say there's a lot of things going on in the bigger world that are offensive to us, and I don't think it's appropriate for us to take a position on all of them. I don't think that the community board should be opining about, building the wall on the border. Like, that's just not, you know what I mean? And we'll have plenty of people who feel that way, but it's not enough to just have a lot of people impassioned and agreeing. I think it has to be a local issue.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Carter.
There's also, there's other forums that people can participate in that can make active statements. And I think that the other concern I have too is that when some of these topics are referred to the committee, some of them it's not if you would make a statement. Some of them it may be, will you make a statement? But if you make the statement, I think the debate, and this is the hard needle to thread, and this is why sometimes things coming from exec are interesting, because there's a lot of experience here. It's like, what do you say? How far do you go in saying it in such a way that right now people are feeling threatened about retaliation or other things? That doesn't mean you can't make a statement,
Right.
but you don't need to make other statements with it. And what's important here is I think the louder voice on a certain issue, and not the complications that we're seeing now. And that's one reason why I just feel strongly about the Stonewall issue, that I don't think you need a complicated comment on it. It's just something that's impacted our community, and the transgender community has been a part of our community and a part of modern gay rights movement. I mean, that's why it's LGBT, and has been for a long time. It's a very simple statement that doesn't have to go into many of the other issues, and I think that that's important to make. So I just bring that up because sometimes the referral and having more debate ends up without the clarity of a simple message. And that's hard right now because we have a city, we don't know where other things are going, but.
I just want to acknowledge, we're all feeling overwhelmed. We feel like we're being bombarded with assaults on norms that, things that we took for granted. Arturo has his hand up again. Yes.
Okay, so I guess one comment I'd like to make is that, like, at this time, I think, to your point, Susan, we're all feeling the changing kind of tides of government, and I would be, disappointed if we didn't want to take action on this because of fear of retaliation. Obviously, like, we're all pragmatic and intelligent individuals, but at the same time, also aspiring to have higher standards for government, I think is critical to actually getting it there. So that's one thing I'd really like for us to let that sink in. Like, what are we actually doing to contribute to fix that problem, or letting the status quo win? And then the other part on, I guess, if, the executive committee doesn't want to move this resolution forward for the full board to vote on and consider, then what would you consider to be the next step? Because what I would not like to see happen is for us to say, well, this is a good idea, or it's not a good idea, or we have no opinion, and then just let it like go into the ether. It'd be very great to, because I think it is urgent. I don't think any committee that it should go to will be able to meet to before full board.
Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
I missed the pre-discussion. What's the therefore be it resolved of the resolution that?
I haven't seen it.
That's the thing is, now, besides the fact that it wasn't fully distributed, which in itself would be a problem for us. We couldn't, even if a committee member wanted to put this forward, since it hasn't been presented to people, they can't vote in an informed way. You have a right as a board member to bring something up at full board as new business. I think what you're hearing here is that people say that feel that this is not it does not fall into the category of subject matter that we address.
Well, I actually can't say that because I don't know what it is.
Yeah, what is the it?
Oh,
We have
okay.
one
Ed,
sentence
I'm
So one
gonna pause,
sentence.
and Ed also worked on this with Arturo, so since he's here, why don't you share with us?
Yeah, starting on Friday and then updated multiple times throughout the weekend. Arturo and I put together a resolution calling explicitly for the resignation or removal through the legal pathways that exist of Mayor Adams, citing that, I think easily evidenced today and yesterday by the resignation of the deputy mayors, that these will have real implications to the administrative efficacy that provides city services to both our community members and citywide, and that there's a specific call to action. It is not just saying we don't like what's happening. It's actually asking our elected officials in New York to take a specific action in a pathway in law. So that was the resolution. Because of the uncertainty of how we were supposed to get to a board vote, I had emailed Susan and Mark earlier today, and we weren't quite sure what we were supposed to do with this. Just because, again, it's a weird thing, and this is also quite unprecedented circumstances. So that's what we wanted to do. We weren't sure whether to do it new business at the full board, do it through this committee.
Yeah, and it's not there's no committee.
Look, again, this is something unprecedented, so that's part of why we're discussing it now, because it's.
Right, and
Do we want to discuss the resolution or do we want?
we were trying to be very respectful of y'all. That's why we brought it to y'all. So this may not have been the smoothest process, but please understand that that's why we intended to have y'all look at it first, and we wanted to do that with your buy-in and support.
Okay, Chenault has his hand up.
I'm sorry, I was trying to lower it.
Okay, then Frederica has her hand up.
Yeah, hi. I've been hammering our electeds, and I think this is a good topic for new business. Bring the resolution to us, but get it to us first.
I think people would be much more comfortable if they saw it and they digested it before, everyone getting it.
That's what I'm saying.
We actually have a debate.
And I have one other, having not read it, but your summary, I don't have expertise in this area, but I'd like you to consult somebody to understand how the Department of Justice, because I understand there's a court process as well that may throw out the Trump situation. And I would like to understand how that plays into this and what the timing is and what the process is. Because that may change things.
And also just because I knew I would get the question, I reached out to the Conflict of Interest Board and the Office of Legal Counsel, and they all said it was fine for us to consider this as long as there's no mention of the election.
Right, which is why I said there's a difference between a political statement and a statement with political implications.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody else have their hand up. I don't want to, as I said, this is not a discussion of all these things. I just wanted to put it out there and get a sense of how people are feeling, and so that we can maybe have some future discussion, but I don't see any more hands up, so that is the.
Don't need a time limit at full board, and how's that gonna come into play on this? Because I think that'll take up.
Well, you have a time limit if somebody makes a motion to put a limit on it, if you want to.
No, meaning we have to leave, because it's gonna be the last thing we talk about. It's under new business.
You know what,
Physical space.
of all the people. Of time.
He's gotten
No, it's
so
somebody
moderate in his maturity.
If you recall, before COVID, we had to rush out of our meetings and people on the board were never happy about it because we'd get fogged up on one issue.
I think that's a perfect thing for the chair to remind people of when various people on our board bog people up.
I tried, I tried.
I would
But
actually
it's
like
also
to
where-
raise, well,
Yeah.
but once we conclude this, I
Yeah,
actually.
we should also have places where that's not the case, you know, because that's always, the artificial time limits aren't a good thing, but that is a reality at NYU.
It is a reality and it's.
What is the time limit?
Yeah, I think is it 10?
Thank God.
10,
Thank God.
okay.
Can I make a
Let's-
request? Oh, sorry.
Okay,
I wanted to make a comment about the time limit, which is a little bit off topic of what we're talking about. Tell me when that's a good thing.
okay, I think we've sort of wrapped this conversation up.
Okay.
So is there something you want as a
I would
procedural?
like to make a request that when people present their resolutions, they not tell us the backstory, they not read the whereases, they not tell us what the discussion was, they simply read the therefores. The reason I say that is that it takes a lot of time, and I receive these things in the emails before and I read them. If you don't read them, tough noogies.
Right.
If you got them too late, that's a different story. You can say, you know what, I didn't get to see your draft until 4:00 today, could you please? But that could be on request. I don't think it's helpful to the group for chairs to presume that everyone wants to hear the background or the whereases. And I think it would be very helpful to the procedure if that could not happen.
Okay, yes.
Is there any way we can also actually restrict electeds' time in terms of?
Yeah.
Because I was timing it last meeting, I think it was over an hour.
They
Just on the
they
elected
eat up more time than anybody
Yeah.
else. And I had tried to be, I would try to be sort of infer that, you know, they should be, but I've been hearing that from people. I am going to then put out a timer for them. Right now, their representatives are supposed to only get 2 minutes and an elected is supposed to get like 5 minutes plus, you know, an extra 2 to 3 minutes for questions.
And could we put a timer on Q&A? Because I don't think we've ever done that.
That would be really.
Because most questions people ask are personal questions. they
You should
reach out to the office.
volunteer to run the timer.
Q&A, I will volunteer to run.
Yes, yes. Having run several endorsement meetings in the last 3 months, we put a limit initially of 30 seconds to ask a question and muted people after. And then the feedback from the mayoral forum was shorter, even shorter questions. And we asked for 20 seconds. Now, will that work with 1 or 2 board members? Probably not.
But you have to time the response too.
The response, we limited to 1 minute,
Okay.
and it was actually really effective. But the key is you need to let, whatever we decide.
It has to be
let the
upfront.
staff- No, you don't even you tell them before the meeting.
That's what I'm saying. It has to be
They're all gonna
done.
showing up, they're all running for something in June.
And also, I think our board needs to know in advance.
Yes,
If you
absolutely.
want to ask an elected official, you know, you got 30 seconds to do it.
Right.
And maybe only
And,
one question.
And and it's always like, you know, if you've already asked a question, then we're gonna go to Susanna first, because you already asked the last person.
Yeah, that's yeah,
Without,
that's standard.
yeah.
Okay, Frederica, is there something else procedural?
Well, just what you were talking about the electeds. If we told the board that they could only ask questions about what the elected just said,
No.
That's not something, no, in the sense of actually questions that are beyond what they've said or contribute to our knowledge. So I don't
but they're
think.
usually the personal questions is my experience, so.
You
Just a
know,
thought. If you're- that's a thought.
Look, I think we know what we're all talking about. It is sort of a reality that goes with being a board member. You know, that's why I think we're talking about absolute time limits, because this way it's neutral.
Also, you know, a lot of electeds, they come in and they just spin what they've been doing.
Oh, absolutely. Those folks, you give them a platform, they'll never relinquish it. God bless them.
Just as a note, the last resolution we were talking about is calling on an elected to do something, and almost all of our residents involve our immediate elected officials. I think having
a relationship and maybe outlining a little bit better before the public set or before the elected official session might be the way to do it. Because you know, there's a topic and somebody's in the middle of it. We want to hear from them.
But if you,
And, you know, but giving a framework for them as a reminder at the beginning of the elected session, if they happen to be there when that's put up.
It's so important to have good relationships with these folks, and that's why it's like, I don't want to like, you know, say cut them off, but I'm hearing you, and I thank you for this. Okay, I'm gonna call in Chenault, and then we're gonna move on because we've got stuff to cover. Yes,
Just to the question of the elected officials, I timed one the other night. The first thing he said was, "I want to be respectful of your time," and he talked more than 15 minutes then. The other thing about that maybe we could would be again useful if it went out as a notice. We're all presumably literate if we're on the board, and we don't necessarily have to have a recitation of every bill that's been passed in Albany.
That is correct.
And the glories of the person who did it. So encouraging written notices would be useful. They're a record and they can be absorbed individually.
Donna, I will call, since you have not said spoken.
I just wanted to say, I enjoy hearing from the electeds, the ones that, you know, when they show up are to the point, speak about what they have done and everything. I think tailoring it is a good idea. They are our liaison. But I also think if they have spoken and then they have the reps coming up after them and telling us what's in the newsletter,
Yeah,
we do
don't.
not need to hear that, but they could respectfully say, my person was here, they said what they needed to say, here's the pamphlet, read it. And that would cut off some of the time. The questions, I don't know. We all know
Usually
what the
we do
issues
not
are.
have a rep speak if the elected is actually spoken of. Yes. Not always, but sometimes, yeah, we try not to, yes.
How about if you move elected to the end of the meeting?
You know, that has crossed my mind, but you know, it's like one of the perks that we sort of, it's like when they show up, we always move, I know, look, that's reality. Okay, I'm gonna bring this board to a close. I'm gonna turn it over to Mark.
Thanks for the discussion.
Okay, with respect to the electeds, I always send them a note saying, sign up to speak. I usually send them a reminder on Wednesdays. If there's something you'd like me to include in that note, Susan will be telling me what that is. But I'm glad to do it, and that's an easy conduit. I can even send a note just to the staff members, which I think is the conduit for any kind of limitation we're talking about. So again, whatever the message is, I'm glad to be the messenger. So first thing on my list for you tonight is the election. The bylaws call for self-nominations up to a week before the February meeting. So as of last Thursday, we have one nomination for chair, Valerie. We have one nomination for first vice chair, Eugene, and we have one nomination for treasurer, Anthony. We believe that there will be nominations from the floor. I'll betray, I hope that there will be nominations from the floor for secretary.
It was oversight. Oversight that you did the deadline.
I was trying to convert the calendar into base 12 so that it was actually a week ahead. But anyway, Secretary Emma Smith and Assistant Secretary Brian Pate, which leaves us without a promised or actual nominee for second vice chair. So,
which is why I mentioned it, to give people a chance to think about it or reach out to people, because sometimes being asked in the moment, turning to your neighbor and saying, would you do this? It's like, I don't know. So, but in the event that there is no one, the nominations for that office will remain open until 1 week before the March meeting. So there would still be time for people to do that.
What does that office do?
What does that office do? That's kind of, well, yeah, besides supporting the first vice chair and the chair, it's kind of open. So
depends the métier of who holds it.
Exactly.
nicely.
Is it like a utility player? Like you kind of are just doing it, like you're doing all kinds of stuff.
You know, exactly. It's, you know, what they do depends on how much people are willing to engage and what the chair asks them to do.
Okay, so I'm sorry, so the other part of the election for you is that our bylaws call for a tally committee. The tally committee is what it sounds like, who counts up the votes, and we will once again use a Google spreadsheet to vote. I'm gonna experiment with ways in which that can be made to work on your phone, so that you don't need the Wi-Fi and that you can vote. And the beauty of voting on the phone or by your computer, even if you're in the room, especially if you're in the room, is that it automatically fills in the spreadsheet and counts the votes for you. So, okay. The tally committee consists of the borough president's representative. So Andrew Chang is going to get a call from me, as he always does. And another elected representative, I picked on Carolyn Wexelbaum last year, so I'll pick somebody else. And then one of our committee chairs. So I don't know if there's a deck of cards around here or what, but someone's got to do it. So please consider that, and I'd be grateful. I have nothing to bribe you with, but I'd be grateful for it. Okay.
I'll give you candy if you do it. How's that? I'll bring some candy just for you.
Although we did do it virtually one year.
Saying it's probably easier to convert together.
Fair enough. Next point I have for you is we've been putting this in the calendar for quite a while now, but it was brought to my attention that there may be a problem, or there is a problem, with the June full board date. You'll remember that our usual date would have been June 19th, which of course is Juneteenth, which is not only a bad day to have a meeting anyway, but it's also prohibited by our bylaws. So what we did was we moved it to the week after. That will interfere with committees' reports to agencies they report to. So the solutions would be to hold the meeting on the Wednesday instead of the Thursday.
Oh, yeah.
But that's a different day of the week than folks are used to planning for. It is a few months in advance, but still. Or to have the committee submit a committee report in lieu of. Obviously, it's always better if a community board speaks through the resolutions of an adopted full board vote. But so when you get to the calendar for the discussion today, please make sure you include that in your discussion. I see a question.
Yeah, I also want to point out that the primary is June 24th. So I know it's not a holiday like the general election, but it kind of is like a day. So it's probably not the best day for exec.
Well,
You're saying
Interesting.
I'm sorry,
So,
what is
so if we move,
Tuesday, the 24th is primary election. We have exec on that day.
okay, so if we to take Janine's point.
Yeah, I know, but like.
If we were to move full board to the Wednesday, which would be the 18th, then you would move exec to the 17th.
Got it, okay.
And then you would move the workarounds, which were, I think, human services and I'm not sure which, where are we?
Right.
Okay, it was traffic would then move to its usual date, the 24th. And then human services could move to its usual date, which would be the 26th. So that actually, it simplifies some things and complicates others. That's for you to decide, but I really wanted to tee it up for you because we have a couple of months notice now, but you don't want to do this last minute.
Right.
Okay, that's the calendar discussion. We will be sending out the, yes, sir.
June 26th, last day of public school.
Okay.
I don't know if that, I don't know.
We should decide June today.
It would be helpful if we decided to.
A better placeholder with.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about placeholders so that we can.
Fair enough. Okay. Let's see. March agendas, well, we're gonna aim for the first calendar with agendas for March to go out this Friday. So those committees that make their own agendas, if you haven't already, and I know some, yeah, thank you. Please get them to me in time for Friday. Let's see. I sent around to you the budget priority responses from the agencies, which were particularly tersely written this year.
There's nobody left to work, so.
We are supposed to send a letter in response. What we've done in the past, since every single budget priority was already adopted by the full board, by a full board vote, The letter simply reiterates why we thought those things were important. This is one of those things that's more of an exercise than it is an opportunity to persuade, because without meaning to comment on Arturo and Eddie's resolution in any way, I don't think the mayor is sitting around waiting for our response to their response to our priorities. I'm going to keep doing this every month. I want to make sure that I capture in the agenda all those committees who have resolutions this month for the agenda. So I have street activities, SLA, cannabis, outdoor dining working group, land use, landmarks, and then I'm asking if there are any others.
Schools.
Schools will have a resolution? Okay. That's how I do this. Okay.
Oh, land use does not have a resolution this month.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
did you have land use down for a resolution?
I did. Thank you for the correction. Excellent. Anything else? Yeah.
Traffic and transportation, did you hear that? We have a resolution.
Shirley, you're a little muffled. Say that again, please.
Traffic and transportation,
Does have one for this month?
yes, we have a resolution.
Thank you. That's why I'm doing this. Got it. All right. Thank you. All right. Let me see. I got a message just tonight while we were meeting from Father Mike at St. Anthony's. So it looks like the much anticipated tearing up of that basement is actually happening. So those meetings that were going to be there are going to be at Lennox Health Greenwich Village, going for, and the 4-month estimate is now 6 months, and they haven't even opened the floor yet. Malik from Lennox Health Greenwich Village should get a nice thank you from all of us, because he's accommodating everything except March 8th, and I'm hot on the trail of March 8th. I'm sorry, May 8th, not March. March and April for SLA are set. Parks and Waterfront next month, March 5th will be also at 75 Morton. That's a tricky spot because we get the room at 6 o'clock and we try to launch at 6:30. I'll be using Yosuke, the guy who helps us set up full board, to do that as well. Everything else I think can wait. And if you want me to put the resolution, the draft resolution up or in some way send it around, just let me know.
I think that, yeah.
Do that? Okay. So I'm going to excuse myself. Questions later if you have.
Okay, so now let's actually talk about other parts of the calendar. Is there anything in the coming month in March or April that people want to address?
I have one kind of general issue. I wish Mark hadn't stepped out. As the outdoor dining working group, we are meeting tomorrow. It's not on the calendar here, but it is on the online calendar. But we are unable to hold those meetings in any other space because we cannot have a time limit. So there really is no flexibility as to this space. And in that last week, I don't know moving forward how we're getting about 30 of these a week. That's why we're meeting tomorrow. We received 28 last Monday, but we're really not able to hold that meeting anywhere else, especially when it goes over the 40 mark on an agenda.
Look, if that is an issue, then you will have priority for this space, because that has to happen. And then and if there's another committee meeting, then we will find a location for that, because it has to happen. It's just that simple. Anybody else have issues with the calendar? Yes.
Did we decide on June?
That was my next point. What are we thinking about for June, folks? Are we interested in moving it to the Wednesday?
The only thing that works for landmarks is the day before it was scheduled, the 18th. The reason being that the next week is when the commission meets. It's all very carefully calibrated. So anytime the week of the 23rd is too late.
Okay, but you already have the 12th on the calendar.
No, I'm saying that the board.
Oh,
the
something to be
board-
passed the
Oh,
full
a
board to
full
go
board.
to.
The board would not have passed.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're advocating for the 18th.
Right.
Okay.
Also,
Um,
schedule vacations.
And we have, I recall one occasion that there was some, maybe even a storm on the night of the board meeting. It was canceled. There was one occasion that we sent unboard certified resolutions.
But you're advocating for the 18th.
The 18th would make it clean.
Okay.
And
Are people, is there, people agree with that?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna move full board to the 18th, and then we will move executive up. It would have to be like the 16th, so that means schools would, and then we will go to the following week.
Alright.
Okay?
The school move, so who's gonna be on the 16th?
Currently, schools is on the 16th, and then you would, since we're moving full board up, and we'd have to move executive to the day before, not the day before, but 2 days before, then you can switch to the following week.
All right.
Okay? Anything else on count? Yes.
All right, I have to go back to this month.
Okay.
So on the 26th, we are scheduled for that date. But it is a COIB training for an election year. So I don't know where else to move that meeting. I don't know if there's something to do on the 20th. I don't know if the traffic meeting is short on the 25th. I mean,
It is possible. I know we don't like to do it, but you can have two committee meetings on the same night. I mean,
we usually start at 5:30, so I don't know.
Well, then it becomes an issue of if one of the other committees that is meeting that week does not have an overlap in terms of membership, then we could do two on the same day. I know it's not, we prefer not to, but.
The thing is, without Mark here, it's scheduled not in this room, so it's
Yeah.
more of a production.
Can somebody get Mark to come back so that we can take care
You
today?
can head out anyway, so.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, okay. Let's pause on that and,
I'm here. What do you need?
oh,
He's online.
he's on. We've got him. Thanks a lot, Ed.
Bye, everybody.
Good night. It was the outdoor dining on the 26th. There's a COIB training. Is it possible to move?
26th?
Is that required?
We all have to do it?
You want to do it. You want to. That's
I want to. This is like the third week in a row that the group is meeting, so I'm just kind of, hey.
So the COIB training
It is
is,
required, but it's not required every year, in the sense of if you did.
January, I believe, right?
I think it's biannually. That's
Pretty strict.
Will it be offered any other time? Because I can't just have like at least where you have to attend a meeting in 1 week. It's
Like I said, this is the third week that this committee is meeting in a row, so I'm out of respect for that time. The people on my committee, I will not have a quorum for that. So again, this is a committee that's meeting for the third week in a row. So if,
Can I jump in on this with two things? Because we're talking about the COIB training. Two things. One, I have yet to get confirmation from the Borough President's office that they will count this COIB training for your biennial requirement to do it. It's the same guy and the same agency, but they haven't confirmed that to me. And it's supposed to be a short one that is very much tailored to what the obligations of community board members during an election year. So they probably aren't going to talk about, Christmas gifts and things like that.
also, I don't have a quorum on Wednesday, so it doesn't.
Okay, and the other thing is that this meeting is at 6:00 and it's meant to be 30 minutes. So, this,
Oh,
yeah, the COIB, yeah, it's a quickie. It's not, because it's a limited agenda or a limited topic. So anyway, I don't know if that changes anything you're talking about, but that's what that's about.
Are you looking at one of the other days of that week?
I think I can have a quorum on the 25th. I haven't confirmed with everyone, but I know I won't have it on the 26th.
Okay, look, if we have to run 2 meetings on the same night, and this is it's not our practice, but we can do it as a
I'm
comment.
just saying, Mark, the problem is that if there are 2 meetings that require an offsite location.
And we've got less than a week to do it.
Which is on.
Thank you, that's correct. Unless someone's volunteering, yeah.
And that's, yeah.
Outdoor dining really, because they don't have a convenient end time, they really need to be here. So with the
That's a
question.
good point. That's a
So
good
the
point.
question is, if there's another committee meeting, then that's the one that's
That
gonna
meeting
happen.
needs to be elsewhere.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So if that's.
I don't know what we've received tonight from.
I haven't gotten anything yet.
Okay.
But it's not.
So I'm
midnight
assuming
yet,
it's
so-
probably gonna be another 28 or so.
Oh, my gosh.
And March 17th, I'm just looking, it's open too, so. if anybody-
Which despite my heritage is not a national.
Oh, right.
Oh, maybe we should make another committee and fill it up.
Okay, you guys let me know.
Okay,
I'll get it.
I think maybe we should talk about this
Put the link
tomorrow
in
in
the
terms
chat,
of,
but I'll send it around the other way.
want to reach out to your committee and see if you can do the 25th?
Yes.
Okay, you will reach out to your committee 25th. We'll resume this discussion tomorrow, and Mark will find a place for traffic.
Okay.
Okay. If there's nothing else in terms of the calendar, let's go to our reports and we'll start with cannabis. Is Mar on or?
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So let's see, we had, how many? We had 3 applications. Curaleaf withdrew its application for a registered organization with dispensing. That's a medical dispensary with retail privileges. The remaining applications, one was a renewal for a card license for Union Square Travel Agency. It was approved. The other was a proposed adult use dispensary at 58 East 11th Street between University and Broadway, which, because it was less than 100 feet from 2 other operational dispensaries, Housing Works and Union Square Travel Agency, it would have required a PCA waiver, which is a proximity waiver, public convenience and advantage. We received considerable written opposition from the neighbors and the impacted businesses. Both the owners of the impacted businesses and several residents attended the meeting and spoke against the dispensary. Upon closer inspection, we realized that the dispensary location was actually about 100 feet from an exclusive use house of worship, which would make it non-compliant. Additionally, the landlord showed up and said that they had told the guy that he couldn't move into the space last summer and they would never give him a lease. So obviously that was a denial. I want to just note for us, because we made comments on the amendments to public convenience and advantage a couple of months ago, that on Friday, the Cannabis Control Board presented a resolution of amendments to the proposed amendments based on the feedback they received during the 60-day comment period. Some of our CB2's recommendations actually made it into those amendments. The resolution didn't pass. It will be presented again during the March meeting. When it does pass, it will trigger another 45-day comment period. So we will be ready to submit those comments next month. We have just 1 application so far for 25 Great Jones, which will be another PCA application.
Any questions okay, thank you. Next is Human Services.
We had a meeting to discuss a shelter plan for 27 West 11th Street between 5th and 6th. This is a plan by Project Renewal. It came before us 5 years ago. And at that time, we took the unusual step of writing a resolution to support it because we had kind of an overwhelming expression of support for this 5 years ago. And since we are a community district with no shelters, and we are a very affluent white district, it seemed like a very nice opportunity to show the city that we have big hearts. This year, there were many more voices of concern. We did not write a resolution, but we wrote a lengthy report. And we're going to have a meeting next week about naturally recurring retirement communities. And also in terms of Stonewall, we had a conversation actually before our meeting started tonight. I would like to propose a resolution about the Stonewall Monument and the change in name. And we decided that we would have it go through the Parks Committee because that is where the Stonewall Monument originally went.
Yes, Valerie.
And you mentioned you'd also worked with Chenault on the Stonewall, right?
Yes,
You've been great.
we were talking about
Perfect.
this together.
Okay,
Okay.
that's great.
Okay, land use.
Yes, so we had two items on our agenda. First was a presentation by the meatpacking bid on what they're calling the Western Gateway Vision. I believe they had a similar presentation to Traffic and Transportation Committee last year. But this was in relation to the Gansevoort development project at the Whitney, on the Whitney site and the public realm. It was a very interesting discussion in terms of kind of the de-industrialization of the area away from the business aspect of having meat packers, in the district, and having some of the roads and other aspects of, the structure geared toward having trucks and so on, and pivoting toward having a residential structure there among the cultural institution, the Whitney. The other item for our discussion was a business meeting on the Gansevoort Square development. And again, we had a very lengthy discussion about what our next steps would be, considering the RFP was released, and what we could do as a committee to try and shift the focus toward greater numbers of affordable housing units, and away from the very narrow view that the city has taken in terms of how they've allocated the site. There is no resolution for this month. We're keeping open the possibility of a resolution next month, keeping in mind that the RFP results, or the RFP submissions, are due at the end of April. So there is still some time for us to issue our committee resolution before then.
So an RFP for Gansevoort Square has already gone out, because I know one for 288.
It
just came out, and that's very good, Susan. It actually beat the RFP for 388 Hudson. So which started, a year ago. They just put out their RFP the other day, and Gansevoort beat them out by about a week. Funny how that happens.
All right, thank you.
RFPs.
No, Al's true, he's right.
New record. Okay, nothing else. I'll go to landmarks.
The resolutions were all routine, all unanimous, and no great discussion about them even. In addition to the resolutions, we have a report on the Delapito Center meeting from the landmarks point of view. We were very careful that we're doing a landmarks report on it.
This is I'm sorry.
And I think it's better read. It's long and it's complicated, so it's better read than my trying to summarize or explain it. And it's just been finished, so it will go up on the not on the website, but on the agenda tomorrow.
Okay. Yes.
I haven't seen it. Is the report asking for transparency in terms of engineering report?
I can't hear Janine.
Is the report asking for any transparency in terms of sharing the engineering reports that the city alludes to? And if it's not, can that be added?
It is, that is not specifically said we were careful to write a report and not go
Oh,
beyond
so
that.
it's just a report,
So
okay.
we pointed
okay,
out the deficiencies, but didn't ask that they be
Okay,
limited, if you get the difference in
okay,
Got
what
it.
we're trying to do. But it's all clear what we mean from what we say and that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, question, I'm sorry.
It's a joint report of the joint meeting.
No.
I think that's a mistake.
Is there, so there's two reports coming out?
That's right. Yeah, I think Landmarks wanted to do one, and they want to talk about restoration of the existing buildings. I think that's what Landmarks committees should do. I think similarly or conversely, Parks Committee should discuss recreational features. And that's what ours does. It's not a resolution,
It's a report.
yeah, it's just a report. If we do yeah.
And we purposely avoided that to be clear what we were talking about.
Okay.
One meeting.
it's tricky, right? Sometimes committees are not.
If it were a resolution, it would have to be something that was
Yeah.
joint. That's what, okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay, outdoor dining.
Sure. Outdoor dining working group, we are meeting tomorrow. This will be the second time we've met this month, and it looks like we're likely going to meet next week as well. Some milestones since we last met. We reviewed our 100th Roadway Cafe application at our January 29th meeting. There was no cake, there was no
Or offering our condolences.
But after tomorrow's meeting, we will have achieved, the board will have achieved the following. We will have reviewed 66% of all roadway cafe applications expected for CB2, and we will have reviewed 8% of all sidewalk cafe applications expected for CB2. So there's about 85 roadway cafe applications left from a number given to us towards the end of last year, and I've since added one. Since you can tell, if you are interested, you can look at the file name on the website for the applications, and it's the year, month, date, and you can tell when it was submitted. Anyways, we continue to ask for and advocate for clarification on the FDNY conditional waivers for the 15-foot emergency travel lane. And as well as continued advocacy for items that are in the rules and the legislation, but that are buried and not featured on the Dining Out NYC website, such as accessibility guidelines, are only on the 311 outdoor dining complaint page, and with the potential erasure of federal ADA guidelines, which are the 36 inches of a minimum route. So we were told by the agency that they were going to remove that line from their ADA guidance that's buried on the 311 outdoor dining complaint page. But there's nothing that has changed from federal ADA regulations. And this is something that we have received clarification on from the US Department of Justice, from the ADA hotline, that one ADA table is not ADA accessibility. So the agency is doing a real disservice to applicants and to the community at large for trying to hide this guidance, as well as not enforcing it. And so when applicants come to us, they are curious as to why ADA, why it wasn't brought up with their planner. And we are very clear on the website on our agenda if there is a sidewalk cafe that's on the agenda. If it's under 3 feet, it's not ADA compliant. So we're not here to shock anyone with a denial, but we are very open with applicants that it is optional for them to be here, and it is optional for them to adhere to any sort of modification that's proposed. So we have a very open dialogue, and I just want to really communicate that to everyone here. And that's it.
Question, you said that you have done 8% of the roadside?
8% of sidewalk.
Of
cafes.
sidewalk, and so what's the deadline for completing 100%?
For the sidewalk or for
Whatever,
roadway?
yeah, I'm not clear how it works.
Sure.
Because normally, like, everyone else gets like.
It's
they
based
get
on
all
what's in the pipeline, right?
Every other committee just does 100% of the applications that month, but you are.
With the bigger number, right.
So what is your timeline? Is it all by?
So the time, so it's dictated by what DOT refers to us every week. So we don't have some queue that we're just drawing and making agendas from. It's what is emailed to us because they have not given, the agency has not given boards access to the portal where you can see the whole queue and see when things are coming down.
So when you say 8%.
When I say,
does that mean for the calendar year, for like, I don't.
What's in the pipeline?
For there's 551 applications that we were told that have been submitted to CB2.
And what's the deadline on approval?
There is no deadline.
There's no
So there is no
deadline.
deadline. So there is no deadline. Now, there's been a lot in the media as of the last week on an April 1st date. So April 1 is when the roadway cafe season happens. Right now, when you go on the super hidden outdoor dining licensing map on the Dining Out NYC website, there are only 34 cafes, roadway and sidewalk approved across all 5 boroughs right now on the map.
So if you've only done 6% and these are all in the pipeline.
We've only done 8%, right? 66% of roadway, right?
If you've done a fraction of what's been done, does that mean that all of these operators they're waiting however long it takes for those things to get approved? Or is there a requirement that they be approved within a certain amount of time? If you decide that you're only going to entertain one application a month, I mean, what are the rules about?
So the legislation gives 30 days from when it hits the inbox, like the official CB2 inbox. These are emailed to us and emails of 5 and 6 with multiple PDFs attached to it. It's very unwieldy and very inefficient. Thank you to the office for organizing us on that. There's been a lot of back and forth over the last week. Applicants were told by the agency that they would not be allowed to set up their roadway cafe until they had gone through the entire process, which means the full approval, the comptroller's stamp, which is why you're hearing Brad Lander talk about this, because he's the last part of the review per the legislation. So that's why this number of 40 has been floated in the news, has been all of this
I
media
haven't heard
coverage.
anything about that. I was just trying to get a feeling for how long it takes for.
That guidance has since been rescinded in the media. There's been no official guidance on the website or to applicants. We were copied on an email that was sent out to applicants outlining that if your application is not approved by April 1st, you could not set up in the roadway. Now, DOT, through their spokesperson in the media on Friday in the New York Times, said that you can set up as long as you have an application in, which is not dissimilar to what is happening with sidewalk cafes. Anyone can have a sidewalk cafe right now and operate it as long as they have an application for Dining Out NYC. They don't have to wait.
I think my question is a different one, which is how long does it take for an application to get processed?
I would love to tell you.
Start to finish.
I would love to tell you that.
Is there a defined time?
That was outlined that was the reason there were so many articles in the New York Times and Front Street.
I just think, can I just,
Process the applications. And if you remember.
I'm not sure that. You're having difficulty hearing me? Sorry.
Yeah, so I said the issue was that DOT has not processed the applications quickly. And if you recall at the beginning, they said, community boards only have 30 days. I think we processed every single application at the community board in the time frame we've been allotted, but there's been a lot of pressure or comments at only 39 when this application period opened, or 34 when the application period opened in May.
Okay.
It's been taking form. We are hearing applications for people who applied in March.
Okay.
And
that's
there's
just how
another
long.
Complication, which is that the liquor authority, nobody is going to be licensed for alcohol because you can only apply for an extension of your liquor license under this new program after the city has issued the license.
Okay.
So it's a bit.
I think I then turned into the quicksand.
It's like a mess.
I apologize.
Donna?
I just wanted to say, I think, Susanna, to your question, the outdoor dining working group has heard every application that they have received notice on within the time frame. When Valerie says how many applications there are, it's what has been stated as in the pipeline. They have not come to us. So the committee is not deciding what they are hearing. They are hearing, which is why Valerie is scheduling all these meetings. As soon as they come in, they are hearing them.
Thank you. That's
Just to be
helpful.
clear on that, because I think that was getting lost in
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah.
then the other thing I just want to say to Carter's point is once they do that, they're all going to be hitting SLA in one way or another. And we are trying to see what we can do to just shorten that, put some waivers if people agree to certain times, if they had seating before, et cetera, et cetera. Our area is very nuanced in everything. As we always see, nothing is a one-off, unfortunately. So we're going to do the best we can to expedite all of that, because that's going to be the last step, and nobody wants their outdoor without their SLA license. And the SLA has issued some guidance on that where they have a little bit of a buffer zone in there, but it's kind of, you know, as Valerie said, people have been putting their applications in since March, and they're just coming to us now. It's a little, the time crunch is coming on the community boards.
Yeah, and just to kind of quickly end with that, we had 100, so since this group met, we've had 109 applications that will have been heard by full board. And most of those don't go for a vote because of the 30 days doesn't make it, so.
Brian?
So I've been reading a lot of the articles in the media, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. And even with all of these news reports, there's still a lot of information that is not included. So it's totally missing from these reports. For instance, I read that the applicants were being forced to present to the community boards. But as Valerie said, that's all voluntary. No one has to come to our committee meetings. And so we're dealing with them as quickly as we can. And it is, there's a lot of blame going around where it doesn't belong. So hopefully we can do our best to try to clear that up.
Okay. I'm sorry? Okay, I'll call on Arturo and then we have to move on.
Yeah, just really quickly, I just want to say, like, I think, you know, Valerie and the outdoor dining working group is really doing their best. As somebody who just joined this year, it is brutal. Like, and I think we're trying to do the best for everybody, you know, residents, operators, vehicles, safety, fire safety, and the amount of work that is being thrown at the committee is just, it's a tsunami. Yeah.
It is staggering.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're gonna move on next to parks.
Sorry, just one question. Who, if somebody is not following the rules when they're alive, you know, when it's going on, when the program's in play, who polices that?
So DOT polices that, and when put in your 1 complaints, they are issuing, there's a lot of summons that have been issued. And they're quite I can't believe I'm going to say this, but they're actually proactive when I've asked about, not trying to ask about a specific, hey, I'm trying to get this place in trouble. I'm trying to get clarification so that I can inform this working group what the guidance is, and they will ask, like, okay, we want to send an inspector out there, like, what location is this? So they have been responsive in that sense.
That's good. Okay. Parks.
Parks.
Yeah, I think we already covered it. I think there was just one point from the meeting that hopefully, crucially, I'm just reading my notes. At the meeting on February 5th, the Parks Department and representatives from other city agencies assured attendees that the site would remain dedicated to park recreation uses with no plans for alternative uses, including affordable housing. Yeah, that was well received. And they also affirmed a commitment to a new outdoor pool and the preservation of the Keith Haring mural. So those were the 2 biggest sort of announcements.
Thank you. Schools.
Yes, our committee met on January 27th to discuss New York City's class size law with Lainey Hameson about ongoing issues and overcrowding in schools. She explained that many schools, including PS 41, are not complying with the law due to space limitations and lack of funding for additional teachers. Our committee decided to write a resolution emphasizing the need for clear multi-year plan for the Department of Ed to address these issues and urge parents and school leaders to advocate for change. The resolution outlined ongoing challenges, inadequate funding, teachers' classroom space, the slow pace of school construction, the lack of transparency by the DOE, capital planning, and so forth. And then our upcoming meeting on Monday, we are going to be addressing that ICE letter that we were trying to push through but we're going to make it a resolution because we have Superintendent Kelly McGuire coming to our meeting, and we're just going to focus only on schools.
Great.
And I can share the memo with you, so if you want to.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh.
The memo is talking about privilege and confidential procedure for in-person interactions with non-local law enforcement guidance for city employees. It includes shelters, it includes city agencies and schools. So our resolution is just going to focus on schools, and I can share this particular letter if you want to discuss it in your committee.
Something to think about.
Yeah, okay, sure, that'd be great.
Share it with you.
Thank you. SLA.
Okay, SLA had, let's see, SLA 1 had 14 applications. We heard 8 of them. All the decisions were unanimous. One is a denial for Piccolo Cucina taking over the Central Pay space on Spring Street for anybody who's near that area. The two places have been battling out for the past years of who is worse operators in the neighborhood, both of them blaming each other. So we denied, they were there to take over, to have a restaurant wine license there, and that was the denial. And it goes back many, many years on the problems with that space. And then SLA 2 had 10 applications. We heard 5 of them. And one was, interestingly enough, a denial for a roadway application. We've only gotten a few of them in SLA of these applications for the outdoor. For Central Pay on West 4th Street, they had down 11:45 closing outside when they came to us for their upgrade of their restaurant wine license for an on-premise license at that location. It was granted, and part of the public interest was to have no outside. And the other thing was to not have their hatch open. Anyway, the hatch has been open all the time. They didn't file the change in method of operation that they were supposed to file back in 2022 to be able to serve outside. They've been serving outside. The people living there are very upset. It's a row of 4 restaurants. So, and there was we really tried hard to, I think, the residents' dismay, to have people talk this over to try to see if there was something about earlier closing hours for the outside there. Because this is a new program, the city's allowing it. Basically, there was no conversation to be had about closing early outside. So that was our denial. On the plus side of that meeting, there were the other applications were met with the community, very well received. People are looking forward to having them there. That was nice to have a meeting that had a number of applications that the community had met with the people and were really in favor of having them there. And then we're losing the church, Mark said, as our meeting place. So I think that's going to be a big change for everybody. That church has been our meeting place since before COVID. Is central to both committees. And so this will be interesting to see how this goes. And that's it.
We'll make it work. Thank you. Street activities.
So we had I think, really interesting presentation from SAPO at our meeting this month. We heard from them almost exactly 1 year ago. So this meeting was a mix of sort of an update refresher on SAPO event types and policies, as well as talking through some of the new changes that had happened in the last year, including the addition of a new event type and open culture and other updates as well. We also were able to take the opportunity to raise some of the kind of recurring issues that we've encountered and discussed in our committee more and more over the last year. That includes pop-up events, which are usually just taking place inside a space, but take over the block with lines and crowds outside and other items like that. SAPO is aware of kind of the increasing number of these events in our district and the impact. And so basically they said, you know, if there's a major impact that includes, you know, a bunch of lines going around the block, they should actually classify it as a street event, not a production event, which would require them to actually have more notice and come before the community board and actually give us a chance to opine, to hear concerns, to potentially issue denials. Because the problem with the production event classification, which is what's usually used for just bringing stuff in and out of a building, there's never enough time in advance for us to actually review it. So that was a good topic for discussion, and I think we got a good answer from SAPO on that. We talked about the issue of people on the ground for events being totally different people than the ones that we actually hear from, because people use permit expediters and a lot of them aren't there for the actual presentation to SAPO. And then we talked about the possibility of embargoes on certain streets that are oversaturated with events, which is something that can be done, although it's not done very often. And so we have a few corridors and streets that are overwhelmed with events throughout the year. So it's something we can think about at least asking SAPO for or passing resolution on for those particular locations. And anyway, we'll have a report outlining all of that. That's going to be in our packet for full board. And otherwise, the events that we heard, pretty standard stuff. Flag.
I have a question. Do you get any sense of a track record of events that you deny that SAPO goes ahead? And like, what impact does CB2's?
I think to be honest, where we've had the most impact is events where we were able to learn that there was going to be like basically a safety issue created. And there've been a few of those over the years where it was going to draw a huge crowd or there was a major influencer. And so in those, I mean, we've been able to get SAPO to act pretty quickly and bring it in with YPD in like a few of those instances.
And most of your event applications you do approve, so.
Yeah, I mean, we used to look more into whether, you know, an event was a commercial event or not, and SAPO made it pretty clear that the rules, which are within the rules of City of New York, don't allow them to discriminate based on who does that. So now it's more calling out, like, I think we've called out instances where it seemed like there was no way to have the required 5-foot pedestrian lane, so SAPO can act on that. We had one that we recommended denial this month where they were going to use an LED screen on a truck, which is actually banned in the city. And stuff like that, you know, we are able to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Traffic, Shirley.
Yeah, first of all, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, good, okay. I'm trying to speak loudly. Anyhow, DOT gave a presentation on their new micro hub pilot program, which basically is an attempt to deal with the overwhelming truck traffic for deliveries on our streets and the sorting on sidewalks, which is really overtaking both streets and sidewalks. It's very limited. Supposedly they will, okay, let me tell you what they are, the micro hubs. They're basically transit centers for transit from the larger trucks to smaller, less impacting kinds of modes. For instance, hand trucks, cargo bikes, small electric vans. This would be both on-street and off-street, on-street being curb, off-street being under elevated structures. At this point, they have sent out a request for expressions of interest, gotten back 8 interests. These will be delivery companies that will run these little hubs for transitioning from the big trucks to the smaller trucks. And very limited, only 8 so far. DOT did indicate to us that they would be interested in our submitting, CB2 submitting suggestions for these hubs. And we came up with 5. There are certain criteria. They're really not going to be very big, and they're not going to accommodate that much. But it's a start, I guess. The criteria include a dense mixed land use, commercial manufacturing uses near higher used residential areas, close proximity to truck routes and bike lanes and networks and transit, space for truck parking, obviously, and transloading, and the receiving modes, which, the vans, the bikes, and the hand carts, clear right of way for the general public, good lighting and infrastructure, a safe space for the workers who are doing this transferring, and hey, areas that might be underutilized. Now, we know we don't have many of them. We were able to come up with 5 possible candidates. And hey, if you have any ideas for possible locations, we would love to hear from you. We can integrate it into our resolution. We are submitting a resolution. I'll tell you briefly what our candidates are. 6th Avenue in the area between West 3rd and West 8th Street. Canal Street as it approaches West Street, that is by the Canal Park, which is really a pretty underutilized place. The southwest corner of 10th Avenue and West 14th Street, that seems to already be occupied by trucks who kind of just hang out there. So it would be a good place to put to use for actual trucks transferring. West 3rd Street between Mercer Street and LaGuardia Place. It's a big 50-foot wide street, which was supposed to have had a sidewalk extension on the roadbed on the south side, which instead has been taken up by parking, and nothing has been done about it to change that and make it a pedestrian area. So we're thinking, hey, maybe that's a good place instead to put it to use for this transferring. And the last one was mentioned was the Hudson Square district, because it was the former printing district, and there are lots and lots of unused, let me just see what I have here. Yeah, loading docks, very large loading docks, where there might be the potential to do something like this. And a lot of these properties are owned by Heinz. So the suggestion is talk to Heinz and see what we might be able to work out. And those are the 5 we came up with, but we truly love to put in more if you can think of them. So there we are. That's what we have. A very, very tiny project. But as I say, maybe a start and maybe leading to some guidelines. That's it.
I have questions for you, Rich.
Yes. What was the West 3rd block? I'm just looking. Shirley, which?
It's right here.
Between LaGuardia and Mercer.
Oh, Mercer. Okay, thanks.
Right.
Yeah, it is wide there. It gets tighter when you cross over.
Yeah, and it was redone by DOT, but unfortunately, that particular little strip, which was supposed to be a pedestrian area, nobody obeys, and so there's parking there constantly. And so we thought maybe, hey, instead of that, since the other stuff isn't working, put it to use for the.
Yeah.
Katie?
I can visualize.
Yeah, what did you say about the Canal Street Park and the use of the area near the Canal Street Park?
Yes, the suggestion was that it is a very underutilized area. And I know I've seen that myself, that the park is hardly used and often used by the homeless, and that there is very little activity going on in that particular area by Canal Street, by Spring Street too, where if you can visualize, there is the salt building, and then there's the Department of Sanitation facility, and those are not very active areas. So we thought, hey, maybe that's a candidate.
Donna?
Thank you.
Yeah, so which space did you say about 14th Street, south of 14th on 10th?
Suggested 10th Avenue on the northwest corner in particular. And we were told, or some people brought it up, that this is an area that trucks often take over anyhow. to take
Okay, so
over on their non-busy times. And so it's kind of like an orphaned area, which maybe has some potential.
Okay, I'm not sure about that. The other thing, I know the bid is looking at doing something maybe on 13th Street in the southeast corner. I think that's state-owned land possibly,
Let
for
me
making,
write that down.
in 10th Avenue,
So this is 13th Street.
southeast and 10th Avenue.
East on-
The stuff parking lot.
And is that more or less not very?
It's a parking lot now, and
Oh.
then on Little West 12th it's that block between 13th and Little West 12th on 10th Avenue. You may want to also coordinate with the bid for what, and that's also, it's a parking lot. One is a parking lot and one is a vacant lot that I believe the city uses for dumping things. I'm not sure about the northwest side of that area. The hotel is there, the hourly hotel.
This is
that's
something
no
that you have
longer
to
there.
confirm. This is something
Yeah.
that, really, the two of you should discuss,
Right,
and
right,
get the
right.
details
So
on.
just send me an email tonight if you can.
Please.
All right.
I'll stick it
Okay.
into the resolution. So anybody else? And we did reach out to the community through our e-blast and we got no responses on that. And let me just say that these aren't necessarily, any of them are going to really qualify. DOT will look into them, but at least it's a possibility.
Thank you, Shirley. I don't know if Ivy is on. I assume, no, okay. Is there any new business? Yes,
We will need the 25th for the outdoor dining working group.
okay,
If you have quorum.
okay. Yeah, I'll talk to Mark about what we decided.
Very good.
Okay. If not, no objections, we'll adjourn.
All righty.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna.
We're out.
He left. Oh, shoot.
Yeah, he left.
Oh, wow.